Chapter 5, a review on 4 chapters in just one word each chapter. Chapter 1, souls. Chapter 2, the second soul is a part of God. That's the second one word, part of God, not a creation of God, but a part of God. The makeup of the second soul, of the godly soul, it's got 10 components. That was chapter 3. Chapter 4, the expression of the soul, thought, speech, and action, garments is chapter 4. And as we learned that the garments make the person, garments even greater. Self-expression of the soul is even greater than the soul itself and its connection to God. Now, in chapter 5, we continue with the godly soul and its connection to the Almighty. The godly soul, the Alter Rebbe now is going to explain this in the terms of study of Torah, which we're doing right now. We're studying Torah. And to further elucidate the idea of grasping God. Is that possible? Elijah the prophet says, no thought can grasp you. That's true. God is infinite, we're finite. But as we learned in chapter 4, God in his great humility took the infinite of him, of his divine wisdom that is bound up in one with him, compressed it as metaphor into a finite existence, in finite reality, and gave us access to him that through the study of Torah, which we're doing right now, we actually have the capability of comprehending God and God's divine intellect. Not a mere ray of him, but him himself we're attached to as a result of that. So the Alter Rebbe explains like this. It works like this. Our mind, when we first study a subject of Torah, like let's say a particular halacha from the Mishnah or from the Gemara, this is the example that the Alter Rebbe gives over here, or it could be what we're learning over here to grasp also, is first one grasps an idea in the mind. So the intellect encompasses the subject. That's when you're getting in a general way. But then when you really get deep into a subject of Torah study, the subject is now encompassing you. It's encompassing you. But then when you finally get it, your mind encompasses that subject. What is that subject? The divine will of God. Whether it's the law that, Reuven and Shimon, that there's a dispute between them, and the divine will and wisdom is that the law is such and such. And even if that law never happens, it's just a discussion in the Talmud about a particular law. And again, it didn't come to pass. Nonetheless, this is the divine will and the divine wisdom. And therefore, when you grasp it, when you get it, that subject matter, that law, that divine will and wisdom, your mind is now encompassing it. Your mind isn't encompassing. What is it encompassing? It's encompassing the divine will and wisdom of God. You're grasping it. You got it. And what's in there is the Ein Sof, the limitlessness of God, is grasped, is encompassed in one's intelligence, in one's mind. At the same time, the intellect is also clothed within the divine will. So what we have over here is a unity that is very unique. From every angle, we are totally bound up and with God, totally united. And this is the distinction of studying Torah and knowing the divine wisdom, is that there is a unity, a oneness with God, that we are grasping that subject matter, and through that we're grasping him, and he is encompassing us at the same time. So usually encompassing is your encompassing. Well, we are encompassing the subject matter. get a subject matter, maybe better. This idea, this teaching, you grasp it, right? So you are encompassing the divine in your mind. And at the same time, the divine wisdom is encompassing you. Sorry, not very good showing of that. But I think you get the idea. That there is no greater unity because in the physical world, either you're encompassing something or the something is encompassing you. You're not both at the same time. You can't physically be both at the same time. But in the divine wisdom that we grasp, both things are happening at the same time. And therefore, there is nothing greater than that in the unity and the oneness of God that a person can achieve through the study of Torah. As opposed to, now with this then we can understand that the metaphor for studying Torah is bread, food. Because what does it mean that you're grasping? It's the divine wisdom is encompassed in you, is like food. Food, when you eat it, it's encompassed in you. It becomes part of you, inside of you. It becomes your flesh and blood. Likewise, the divine wisdom, when we grasp the teachings, it means truly grasping the teachings, that knowledge of Torah the person gets in their mind, it becomes food for the soul. That's why, how many of us are inspired after we learn together or whenever you're learning Torah? Why are you becoming inspired? It's because it's become, when you get it, when you grasp it in your mind, the concept, it's now feeding your soul and therefore inspiring the soul as a result, because it's food. As the term goes, food for thought, but it's much more food for thought. It's food that gives vitality, not just food for thought. Food for thought is just, take the idea and kind of, run with it in some whatever manner. Mitzvahs, on the other hand, are called garments. We spoke about garments that they're self-expression, but garments, when you put on tefillin is not in you, it's on you. When you're lighting your Hanukkah menorah, Shabbos candles, it's not something that's inside of you, it's something outside of you, in a sense that the light of God through the act that you're doing, the light that you're creating of God through the act of doing the mitzvah, is a light that's encompassing you, but not internalized within you. And that is the distinction of Torah study. The truth is, even though each one is unique, Torah study is food, and it's food for the soul. It's something that's incorporated, it becomes a part of us. And then really what happens is the divine wisdom becomes my wisdom. The more we study Torah, the more we get it, the teachings, the more it becomes our flesh and blood, meaning it becomes our perspective. It becomes the way we view the world. We view the world from the Torah perspective, which means the divine will and wisdom of God, because it became a part of us. And that's how we now perceive the world. And that's an enormous thing, unique about Torah, where the mitzvah is on us, garment, like a garment, but not in us, absorbed and grasped from within. Yet, Torah also has the quality of a garment. And especially when we say the words of Torah, we're fulfilling the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, then it becomes also an encompassing light, not just something that's from within, but it also becomes a garment for the soul. And in that respect, we can understand the uniqueness of study Torah, that is Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam, that the study of Torah is equal to all of the other mitzvahs, because it has both the internalization, food, that's encompassed from within, and at the same time is the garment that is encompassing from without, that is over us, so to speak, the light of God. Light of God within and from without has both qualities. Okay. I hope that was clear. So what's chiddush over here? What's the novelty over here? The novelty is that God's wisdom is, well, we learned in the previous chapter, is compressed and it now becomes in a physical manner. But what it becomes something internalized. It becomes me. It becomes a part of me. That ultimately God's vision becomes my vision. His wisdom becomes my wisdom because it's incorporated within me, because I can grasp it, I can get it, and it becomes food for the soul that gives us life. And that's why it's so important, not just to do mitzvahs, and we'll explain later on when we get to chapter 35, the uniqueness of doing physical acts of mitzvahs, and what's special about that versus Torah. Now, speaking about the divine soul and the unique connection that it has to God Almighty. That's the novelty over here, is that it has both the internalization and the encompassing light of God through the study of Torah, which makes it greater than all of the mitzvahs, even combined. Powerful idea and a novel idea. Okay. Rodriguez, shalom. Marcella from South Texas, shalom. And Yuthi, thank you for joining. Flavio from Brazil, if I remember correctly. Laura from Nashville, Tennessee, good morning. Shani from South Africa. Mark from Santa Rosa, good morning. Ernie, thank you. Thank you, Yuthi. Batsheva, Memale, and Soivev. Yes. That's another terminology. Doesn't use that terminology over here because it's speaking about how the soul is taking it as opposed to generality of the world. Usually Memale and Soivev is in reference to the worlds. And here it's Pnimius Chatzonius, Levushim versus Mazay. So it is a similar idea, absolutely. But you see that the Alter Rebbe didn't use that terminology because they're used in a different reference point, but a similar idea. Thank you for sharing that. Adam from Charleston, South Carolina, good morning. And divine will of God is powerful, absolutely. Batsheva from Toronto, thank you for sharing that, Batsheva. Maxwell, I forgot from where. Thank you for joining. Clarissa from Oregon, USA. And Julie from Cape Coral, Florida. Good morning. Rick and Devin. Okay. All right, folks. We have a happy Hanukkah. We have from Windsor, Boker Tov, from Puerto Rico. Thank you for joining. Harvey is asking about going on a cruise for Passover. Yes, you need to have Passover food. And on a cruise, you're probably not going to get it. Yeah, you can't eat the regular food. All right, folks. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you for Chabad Zich and Kadeshim, wishing you a Freilich Chanukah. Tonight is the last light of the menorah, Zois Chanukah. And today is Rosh Chodesh, so a good Chodesh, a Freilich Chanukah, and a wonderful day. Thank you for joining.